Wendy Gillen. I created the Black Poster Project after I lost my son, Scott Gillen, on October 15, 2015, to a heroin fentanyl overdose. So I started this project in 2019 while I was speaking at an event in Piermont. I thought it would be really nice to have posters of the children who were being talked about at that event. So I started with 50 posters, and now I have 400. Sadly, we keep growing, and until this epidemic stops, we make some kind of a dent in awareness, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We do all posters at no charge for the families, and we charge nothing to come to communities and bring this awareness to schools and towns and all around New York and New Jersey. So thank you all.
Hi, I'm Nancy LeBeau from Alumni in Recovery. We're an organization that speaks about addiction, and we're here at Park Ridge High School. And together we can make a difference, bringing in the parents, bringing in the community, like the police officers and the mayor, and just all the kids being able to see the posters today. Plus, after the black posters or before the black posters, they get the opportunity to hear from people, local people that are in recovery, young people, on a peer-to-peer approach that can talk about the pathway of addiction and talk about root causes and how to opt for better choices. It's so important, and we need to be able to raise awareness and end the stigma. So we're really grateful to be here at Park Ridge High School.
This morning, we have a very informative and an impactful presentation for you. We are partnering with a bunch of different people to bring you a really important message about addiction today. This is a project that is very close to my heart. Some of you may know or may not know, and I don't think I've had any of you in health yet, but my family and my friends were directly impacted by addiction. We will have some great guest speakers today that will come in and speak to you about the dangers of addiction, the impact it had on them and their families. And we also have something added on today called the Black Poster Project, which is a project that will take place inside our mini gym. There are some things that are very real here, and our guest speaker today, Brenda, will be speaking to you about the things that she's gone through in her life. So Brenda will come up and she'll speak and be our first speaker.
Okay, hi, good morning everybody. My name is Brenda. So I am currently just about to hit 2 years sober from alcohol, and almost just about next month 5 years clean from any pills. So my story starts honestly when I was born. I was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey. And so usually when people think of Paterson, they think of drugs and violence. And unfortunately, my experience in the 4th and 5th Ward in Paterson was very similar to that. I was born from immigrant family. We were working class, lower class, you know, my family worked to survive. And so unfortunately, because of that, we couldn't afford to live in nice areas, so we settled in Paterson for a really long time. You know, something that I always say is I knew what heroin and cocaine was before I knew how to read. I was exposed to that really young, whether it's from my sister, whether it's from my cousins or my uncles. It was so ingrained in not just my family, but in my neighborhood. I would walk outside and I would see drug deals in my local corner store. It was something that I always was familiar with. But one thing I always told myself was, that's never gonna be me. But life comes at you fast. I grew up, you know, moving a lot because of financial issues. I did not have the most stable childhood. My mother was very mentally ill. And because of that, I never had that support, and my father was always working. I have an older sister, but she was much older than me, and so she I don't blame her, but whatever she did, she would try to leave the house as much as she could. She did a lot of sports. I'm not a sport kind of person, so I never did that. So I remember feeling symptoms of depression and anxiety really, really young. I would see therapists in elementary school, and in middle school, I ended up going to a psych ward. And so because of that, I was prescribed a lot of different medications. And I was in a bout of psych wards, and I ended up going to foster care when I was in middle school. Being in foster care really was traumatizing. I felt like I didn't belong, not in my school. I felt like I didn't belong at my house. Everything was ever changing. And so because of that, when I started high school, I dealt with a lot of trauma and anxiety, and that's when I had a doctor prescribe me Xanax. And I kid you not, when I first tried Xanax, it felt like everything I was missing in life, I had finally found in that one pill. And very, very, very quickly, I became addicted to it. I don't even think I took it as prescribed for very long. I started overusing it a lot. I would take it before school, I would take it in school, I would use it so much to the point where throughout high school, I just had so much aggression and so much dependency on it. I became very violent with my family. I would manipulate and lie to my friends about everything. I would have friends in high school ask me, are you high? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, no, it's okay, this is just me. I did not want to admit to anybody, but especially myself, that I had a problem. Because in my eyes, all of that anger and depression and anxiety, all of that resentment towards my parents, all of, any problem in my life, I felt like if I were to take this drug, it would solve everything. So when I had turned 18, my psychiatrist finally, after, I was about your age when I started using Xanax, about a freshman, sophomore year. And by the time I was 18, my doctor realized that I had been abusing it. So he cut me off of it. And one thing with a drug addict is they do not want their drugs to be cut off. And so I would seek for it anywhere. At that point, at my senior year of high school, I realized that I wanted to become a nurse. It was really hard to understand, how I could do that with the drug addiction, and it just became with that denial that I could abuse drugs and I could also go to nursing school. So when I eventually went to William Patterson, my first semester straight out of high school, it very, very, very easily and very quickly, not even halfway through the semester, I chose drinking and drugging over going to class. And even though my heart and passion was to be a nurse, because I wanted to help people the way that I wanted to be helped. I never wanted a single person to feel the way I did. And so being a nurse was my passion, even though I was very sick. And unfortunately, my addiction kept me from that. I dropped out of nursing school quickly after the first semester. I didn't last very long. I started hanging around people who, just like me, had gone through stuff in their lives, and I felt like I was understood. And the only way we would ever, it was a very toxic friendship. I was around people who, like I said, were not happy with the things that have happened to them, who were not happy with the things in their lives. And so I very quickly just clung on to them, and we would very much enable each other. Shortly after dropping out of William Patterson, I had just turned 19. And I overdosed on my medication. At that point, I would go out and buy the drugs. I would even get it from the pharmacy. And there's one thing you need to know is that whatever prescription medication, whether it's Percocet, Xanax, it's very different when you find it from the street versus when you get it from the pharmacy. And I learned that a really hard way, because the Xanax that I would get from my pharmacy was very different from the Xanax that I would get from Patterson, unfortunately. And so I got hooked up, and at this point, I don't even know what was laced in it. Honestly, when I overdosed, I don't know what I took. Because the high was very different than any other time. And I just wanted to make it a point how easy it is for you to trust whatever drug that you have, you don't really know what's in it. So I thought I took Xanax, but I might have not because I overdosed. My mother found me and I ended up going to the emergency room. They pumped my stomach, they did as much as they could, and medically, you know, it took me a couple of days to recover. And as soon as I did, I went to rehab. Going to rehab, I understood, you know, the psychiatric part of it. I have seen counselors, I have talked about my depression, my anxiety, this and that, but facing my addiction was one of the hardest pills to swallow, because I could very much easily say, oh yeah, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, but to face that I have a problem with this drug was so difficult because I had to come to terms with that I can never take this again. And I was so dependent on that, and I didn't want to let go of the one thing that I felt like was going to help me and save my life, when at the very end it was destroying me. I wasn't driving, I didn't have a job, I could not hold a job because I was always doing drugs and I was always drinking. I dropped out of school, all of my friends were dropping like flies. They were also dying and overdosing. I could sit and tell you a list of all of the names of people I've known in my life, whether it's from childhood, whether it's from college, who have died, but the list would be so long. I still am trying to process and grieve that, because unfortunately addiction is a disease, and during my disease I would see people die in front of me and I would not care because I was more focused on getting high. And so when I finally got sober, I had to come to terms with all of the manipulation, the lying, the gaslighting, coming to terms with being a person I did not want to be. I had to face the facts that I am a bad person. I was not acting like the nurse, the healer that I intended to be. And it was a very big wake-up call when like I had said before, I was in foster care. So I had a mother figure, my foster mom. She was there with me throughout all. She was very patient, very understanding, one of the most loving women I've ever met. And when she died from an overdose, I lost it. I felt like the pillar in my life shattered. And the mother that I always had, I would call her every day. I would call her mom. Mother's Day, I would give her a gift. And I felt like she was the mother I always wanted. She was that role model, that mentor I needed. And now that she's gone from the same addiction that I'm suffering from, it really opened my eyes, and that's when I got sober. When I was trying to get sober, I had met a man. I was 19 and he was 25. I looked up to him in many ways that a young, naive girl would look up to a man who she believes could give her everything, and that's what I believed. He was a heroin addict. And I was familiar with heroin at that time, but I didn't know firsthand until I saw it, until I had gone out, I had seen the withdrawals. I saw, the stomach aches, the vomiting, the sweating, the flu-like symptoms, but more than anything, the anger and the aggression, how he felt when he did not get the drug. I have slept on his bed and woke up and saw his lips blue because he had overdosed, and I had to perform CPR on him. I had to call 911. And the first thing he told me when he woke up was, why did you do that? Because me calling the police, me calling for help, took heroin away from him. Now he can't get another fix because he's in the hospital, because he has to go back to rehab. And that's one thing I want to talk about, is the Good Samaritan law. The Good Samaritan law, if you guys have not heard of it, is a law that's in place in New Jersey and other states as well. But since we're in New Jersey, we'll talk about it. If you are in any social setting, whether it's a party at a friend's house, and somebody is, the drugs are there, underage drinking is there, you can still call 911 for help if somebody needs medical help. It can be as, somebody getting too drunk and tripping and hurting their head, twisting their ankle, or even something as severe as somebody overdosing. If you call 911, even if you are high, you are drunk, you will not get in trouble, because so many people have been lost from addiction that this law has been put in place. So people know, the public knows, that regardless of what's going on, the police are there not to get you in trouble. They're there to help save lives, because there have been countless of lives being saved. I know people who have overdosed from Patterson, from Newark, but I also know people who have overdosed in areas like this in Inglewood. drug addiction and overdoses, it doesn't discriminate. It can happen with low-class communities, but it can also happen to upper-class, middle-class communities like this. It can happen to Black people, Hispanic people, white people, Asian people. When you go to the presentation next door, you're going to see it does not discriminate, and a lot of people are dying. And you know, if there was one thing I knew when I was your age is, even though sometimes it can feel like the odds are against you, especially if you have a community, you have family members who are struggling with addiction, it's almost like you're predisposition to it. But regardless of if you're using, if you haven't, just know there is help, not just for you, but for the people in your life who are struggling. So, you know, like I said, I am 2 years clean, and I'm 2 years sober. I am a nurse now. I got sober shortly after my foster mom died. And it was one of the biggest blessings in my life. I went to nursing school, so I am working as a nurse right now. And it is so fulfilling to do that. You know, the dream that I always wanted, it's still there, regardless of the struggle that it took to get there. So I really, really hope that you guys can listen and take something out of this and really take your time and process, because next door. So thank you for listening to my story, and hope you are able to get something out of this.
We have a wonderful guest speaker here, Morgan, who will speak to you about her trials and tribulations in her life, and she'll, try to make a connection with you as young high school people. So here's Morgan.
Hi guys. So you can hear me better. This morning I was kind of screaming through the mask, but I was told it's okay. So hello, as he said, my name is Morgan. I'm here with Alumni in Recovery. Basically, long story short, we are young people in recovery, local to the area. I grew up in River Edge. I went to Riverdale High School, and we go to schools, we share our stories with addiction, our struggles, what led us there, et cetera, because we want to help. We don't want to stand here and tell you, like, you could do everything we did and come out alive, because as you'll see in the next room, there's a project that will show you that that is just not true. But with that, I'm just going to start. When I was little, my family would drink a lot. Alcoholism runs in my family, and I didn't really understand it. I just understood that the second that substance, they drank that substance, they started slurring their words, they started acting differently, and I hated it. I hated not knowing what I was coming home to. I hated just like not having the support necessarily for when I began to struggle with that. So from a very young age, I decided that I was like, I'm never drinking alcohol, I'm never doing anything, I'm never smoking cigarettes, because I remember an uncle once burnt my cousin with a cigarette, and I was like, no, we're never doing that. But that didn't, the things that you say when you're young, you might truly, truly mean them, but then when you get, like, the older you get, the more these things get presented to you, and you're, forced to make a choice. So 7th grade, is when I first started really struggling. Riverdale is a combination of both River Edge and Oradell. So in middle school, a bunch of kids all come together. And for me with social anxiety, I was like, this is my biggest nightmare. I only know 1/3 of the kids. What is happening? I had 2 close friends at the time, and I thought I was a loser. I saw all these girls, forming cliques. I saw people starting to date each other. People were experimenting with drinking and smoking and all that stuff, and I thought I wasn't that cool, and I told myself, okay, you can experiment in high school. So throughout middle school, I instead developed a very bad habit of self-harming. I started in 7th grade on my birthday, due to that same neglect kind of feeling, and then it kind of just became a regular thing. It was almost daily at a point in 8th grade. And I even had started therapy, but I wasn't being honest. I was scared of what I was feeling. I didn't want to be that girl who was cutting herself, but yet I found myself in that situation almost nightly by 8th grade. And so when I was going into high school, as I said before, I promised myself, okay, now you can drink, now you can, test it out. You'll be nothing like your family. But the first time I ever had a sip of alcohol, it was basically me putting down the cutting, putting down that form of self-harm, and picking up the bottle and using that as self-harm. And so from the first time that I ever tried alcohol, which was before a football game with my friends, like in the woods, water bottle filled with vodka, and I remember it was like 4 or 5 of us, and I was like, I don't get it. How are we sharing this? How are we gonna get drunk? Or what do you mean? Like, it did not compute to me because nobody in my family just drank to drink. They drank to get drunk, and that's all I knew. So very soon, I started drifting away from those friends. They didn't want to drink and get as wasted as I wanted to get, so what do? But I start jumping from friend group to friend group, trying to just find the people who will support my bad decisions, essentially. But at the time, I thought nobody understood me. I thought that I was in the right and everybody around me was in the wrong because I was a stubborn teenager. And so those habits kind of just grew with me. I always prided myself and thought I did not have a problem because I would go to school all 5 days of the week. I wouldn't be high, I wouldn't be drunk, I would be getting good grades. I thought that it wasn't affecting me at all. But the second that bell rang on Friday, especially if there was a football game, especially if there was like a party that was going on, people knew that I was going to go down the drain and you don't want to talk to me till Monday because I'm a mess. And so, quickly, reputations happen. I was surprised that it didn't happen as soon, as badly as it probably should have, because I was not the best person, I was not the best friend, and aside from, grabbing at alcohol, and I tried weed, I didn't like it personally, I had really bad anxiety, but alcohol was my filler. I thought that it was normal to drink, so I drank. And so, my senior year of high school, I vividly remember looking forward to it because there were so many drinking activities. And now my whole grade can drink with me. And they all want to get just as messed up as me because that's what you do senior year. So what do? But I take it to the highest level every time. And I'm thinking it's okay because everybody else is doing it with me. There's a lot of people whose alcohol problems showed themselves early on that year. That prom weekend, I somehow got through that alive, but a lot of people's addictions showed through once they were in that setting with all of those substances available. And then fast forward 2 weeks after prom weekend, I thought I made it through. It's my senior year. The night before graduation, we had a movie night, and that movie night was organized by our counselor, and some people drank before going, including myself. I also decided it would be a great idea to drink while I was there. I ended up getting arrested in front of my whole grade the night before graduation and could not walk at graduation the next day. So me, who thought that my weekend drinking wasn't affecting anything, I learned the hard way that yes, it was. I was kind of just building up, and then graduation, I attended, I wasn't with my grade, I was on the other side in the audience. I was so out of my mind drunk watching them skip over my name, and I have never felt so low, so embarrassed. From the night before being handcuffed in front of my grade, them seeing me in the cop car, I wanted to disappear into that embarrassed feeling where you don't want to be there. You'd be anywhere but there. So needless to say, I didn't really end high school on the best note. That summer, I actually drank every single day of that summer. My friends very much enabled me because they felt bad. They were giving me excuses. They were doing it alongside me. I wasn't around the most healthy group of friends. And during this time, I had committed to going to Montclair State University. And so I was, all set to start in September. I went in September, and I stayed for a total of 2 weeks. My anxiety started eating me. Like, I couldn't leave my bed to leave in the morning to make that commute. I would be there, and then I'd just be like not present in my body. I'd be thinking about the weekend, trying to get friends in college, go to college parties. Like, my brain was not there. And then there was a public speaking class. And it's just really funny because I'm talking to you guys right now, fine. But this public speaking class is actually the real reason why I dropped out. I was so nervous to stand in front of like 20 half-asleep college kids and say 3 fun facts about myself. So much so that I got mad at the school because they wouldn't let me present individually. I was mad at my mom because she didn't get it. She was mad at me for leaving and, blaming everybody around me except for myself. And so after that, I started working full-time because what else was I going to do? So I started working full-time at a daycare. And once again, I started priding myself on not going there drunk. That is not something to wake up and be proud of yourself for. I literally was so proud of myself for never watching a child under the influence, and that was something I was proud of for a period of time. That's not something to be proud of. Of course, it's good that I never was under the influence, but it definitely wasn't something that was helping me in the grand scheme of things, because now I was starting to make money for the first time in my life, and then that money was buying me alcohol. That alcohol, I was finding new friends at this job. I was hanging out with friends from other towns, some people from Park Ridge, some people from Norwood, like a lot of people in this area actually. I worked in Emerson. And I didn't think twice about it when cocaine was offered to me at a party. Someone told me you could drink more if you snort this. And so my addict brain said, okay, let's do it. That split-second moment had me using cocaine like that for like about 5 years after. What you put out there, you attract, right? So I attracted a very unhealthy relationship. And I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I do want to say he was into pills. He was into Xanax and benzodiazepines. I was into alcohol, didn't smoke weed, had not done pills up until this point. But 2 toxic people, especially 2 addicts together, very, very terrible. We interchanged addictions essentially, played with our lives every night because the 2 things that we were taking, the Xanax and the alcohol, is a deadly combination that most people don't realize that you can literally die just from that. You don't need fentanyl, you don't need heroin, you don't need anything. Mixing drugs can literally kill you. And I didn't care. I didn't think anybody else cared. I thought I was just living my life. My parents, I wasn't living at home at the time, so I thought it was like, it was whatever. But it wasn't. And the relationship turned physically abusive. I would have black eyes in the morning, I'd wake up and my cheekbone would be broken, like ridiculous things. And so that's when my pill usage kind of got worse. So I was like, okay, well Xanax makes me black out. Let me try X, Y, and Z with the alcohol because I was building a tolerance, and it just became this spiral that just got more and more drugs added to it. The worse that I got, the less that I paid attention to it. And so eventually he went to rehab, and that's when I really went down the drain. It's almost like his toxicity was kind of holding me back from completely exploding. I was hanging out with a lot of people and a lot of friends that I had used with in the past. And one of them is actually on a poster in there that you will see. I'm going to try not to get emotional. I don't know why. I normally don't get emotional about this. She was 19 when she overdosed. I was there when she tried heroin for the first time, or what I think is the first time. But what you guys need to know is that drugs change people, and it doesn't matter if they're a good person inside. It doesn't matter if they're the sweetest girl that you've ever met. It changes you. It makes you lie. It makes you say terrible things. It makes you do terrible things. It makes you steal, cheat, all of those things. And it's very hard not to take it personal on the other side, and I get that. But I know myself, I did that to my family, I did that to my friends as well. So once my friend tried heroin, I remember her vividly saying the next day that she wanted to do it again. And she knew what it was. She knew that it was bad. She knew it was higher than anything else she'd ever done. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. Her brain was literally obsessed with that high, obsessed with the nodding out, and it didn't make any sense to me. And it wasn't until I actually, parted ways a little bit with her because I knew that that wasn't good for me. So I'm happy that I had the knowledge then. But that did not stop me from in the future, in the upcoming months, asking people for heroin, begging people for heroin when I couldn't know. I was paying for alcohol with quarters at a point. Like, I was begging people for heroin, and thankfully I was surrounded by people who cared about me enough to say no. They were like, listen, you have enough of a garbage life right now, you do not need the heroin. But I didn't even think of that like as that much of an issue. I was like, why are they not giving it to me? I don't get it. And so, my ex, he had come home from rehab, and I was I was talking to him back and forth, and he came home, and my secret life, my double life, caught up to me. Snapchat, I hate Snapchat because it was made so things disappear after you send them, but that does not happen. They stay saved. And so someone had taken a story of me at a party and decided it would be a great idea to send it to him. So what do I get but the world's most toxic, mean phone call? He wasn't wrong to be mad. He was wrong to say the things that he did. And this ended in a suicide attempt by me. Obviously, I am okay. I am here. But I got to that same level of embarrassment, that I want to curl up in a ball on the floor kind of embarrassment. I had never felt that low in my life. I was coming down from a lot of drugs. I was coming down from the alcohol, the withdrawals and stuff. Like, it was hard. And I had to basically sit there when I was in the hospital and say, what do I even have if I leave here and I continue drinking? Where am I even going to get the drugs? Nobody wants to support me doing this. Like, I'm a mess. So I literally had to sit there. I made a list in the hospital. Who can I still hang out with? Who shouldn't I hang out with? And I started figuring it out. And I started doing what everybody had been telling me to do. Figure out what you like, try hobbies, coping skills. And up until that point, I was like, yeah, coping skills, whatever. But yeah, coping skills. And if you guys get anything from what I'm saying, is the coping skills part. Like, my mental health toolbox wasn't existent, but say it was, theoretically, right? That was filled with pills, bottles of alcohol, any toxic relationships, unhealthy friendships, you name it, that was all in my toolbox. I had to dump that out. Like, that was not helping me, that was hurting me in every way, shape, and form. And then so I started filling it up. I figured out I like writing, I like going on hikes, I like doing yoga. I'm now a yoga instructor. Like, these things couldn't have happened if I didn't sit there with myself and be honest and try to figure out what makes Morgan Morgan. Because I didn't know who I was without the alcohol. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I thought I was like nothing. I thought I had no personality without alcohol. It was the scariest thing ever, especially with it so prevalent in society. It was like, how am I not going to drink for the rest of my life? But that's why people always say, one day at a time. Because it is one day at a time, right? I got out of the hospital and I started putting one foot in front of the other, and I was okay. The sky wasn't falling down, and I was okay. I started going to meetings. I started going back to therapy. I started hanging out with people in recovery, which is another big one. I was so upset that my friends wouldn't come into recovery with me. And now those people who did not come into recovery with me, like, one of them is on a coaster. Some of them are still in active addiction. 2 of them are in prison right now. Like, I got out just in time. I could have been one of those coasters. I have overdosed before. My ex-boyfriend has overdosed in front of me before. And before I wrap it up, I just want to give a story because I want to touch on the Good Samaritan law. So the Good Samaritan law is a law that says, if you are, say you're at a party, you're with friends, someone said once in the woods, it doesn't matter where you are, right? Someone needs medical attention, say they are overdosing, especially if their lips are blue, if they're having a seizure, or even if they did something stupid when they were drunk and they broke their ankle. You could call 911 and you will not get in trouble. The police officers will arrive at the scene as a first responder. They are going, you are not going to get in trouble because you are being the Good Samaritan. And I stress this so much because my friend who passed away could have been saved by that law. Her boyfriend at the time was too scared to call and left her for dead in his bed, pretending he didn't see it. She could have literally been saved and he would have had no penalties. And then my ex-boyfriend, when he was overdosing, he was unconscious. We were slapping him trying to get him awake because everyone was so scared to call. Had we called, I wouldn't have had to end up trying to give him mouth to mouth. I wouldn't have had to end up, taking care of him that night and all this stuff, but his friends were so scared that they didn't want to call. But like, that's why these resources are put into place. That's why we're here talking to you, because we don't want more people to die. Like, and it sounds extreme, but like, it is extreme. So thank you guys for being so respectful, great listening, and with that, we can, I don't know how you guys want to do it, but we'll start heading on into the other gym. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Ruben. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Clifton, New Jersey, and I'm a member of Alumni in Recovery. Alumni in Recovery has teamed up with the Black Poster Project, which we have a bunch of posters in the room next door. All right, so to give you a little background about myself, I'm 24. I'm from Clifton. I grew up as an only child with a single mother. In my area, I live right by Patterson. So I grew up seeing panhandling throughout my life, seeing people hang out at the corner, at the bodega, looking for spare change, sleeping on park benches, and I always assumed that that's what drug addiction and alcoholism look like. I grew up without a father. My father, he was an alcoholic and an addict. He was never around in my life. And I knew that drugs and alcohol were something I didn't want to get involved with. With that being said, I was probably around 7th grade, I would say. No, a little before that. I was still in grammar school. We had a DARE that we would have to go to in 4th and 5th grade. And I think it's a great program. But for myself, I knew that drugs like crack and heroin and cocaine and gangs, I knew that was something I did not want to get involved with. I knew that, my father had problems with that stuff. I didn't want to go down that road. But at the same time, I watched a lot of movies and I listened to a lot of music that glorified using and drinking. I remember the movie Project X had just came out around that time. It was a big movie about how to throw the craziest party. And I would watch other movies, which I'm not really going to get into, but movies that glorified smoking and drinking that were coming out. And I didn't see anything wrong with smoking, since marijuana grows out of the ground like grass. I didn't see, when I had the cop coming up to us telling us, don't smoke weed because it's a gateway drug. Whenever I heard drug, I pictured something that was a powder or a needle or a pill or something that I would see in the health class on the board that said, don't do this or else you'll end up, with all kinds of problems. With that being said, there was a lot of glorifying smoking and drinking, and I'd say 6th grade was the first time I actually smoked a joint. I didn't get high. By 7th grade, I started smoking a little more often. I had a lot of friends who were a lot older than me. They had siblings who were a lot older than me, so I was 7th grade, 8th grade hanging out with seniors in high school, and getting weed wasn't really hard. Since I had older friends, they wanted me to sell weed to kids around my age, and that was something that I don't really see as a big deal. Again, I really downplayed marijuana, and I'm not here to tell you guys, obviously I'm going to tell you not to use drugs and to stay away from certain things, but you have to come up with, your own view on stuff. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with smoking weed. I didn't think it was a drug, like I said. By 8th grade, I had a truancy officer come to my house because I was missing more classes than I was attending. I'd rather go to the bathroom and hang out and go to the nurse and find excuses to go home, so this way I could go home and smoke weed and watch SpongeBob and eat pizza and sleep in and not do anything with myself. And my grades really started going downhill. I was never really much of a classroom kind of guy, but I just stopped going to school in general. I started having consequences for my actions. And as I started to get older, I started to realize, if I continue doing the same things, I'm going to keep getting the same results, and things aren't going to get better. But even with consequences, even with truancy officer coming to my house and getting in trouble with my mom and getting in trouble with my teachers, I still did not think I had a problem. I thought that the problem was everybody else, I thought that was the teacher's problems, that they were boring in class and I wanted an excuse to not be there. I thought that smoking something that grew out of the ground was okay, and it made me feel, a little funny, made me, I thought it made everything better. By 8th grade, I had gotten kicked out of my school. I was smoking in the school bathroom. I got arrested a few times in my school, and I had to go to a different school. Over the years, by the time I was 16, I had a pill habit. So I started smoking at a young age, and within a few years, I had got prescribed medication. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of something called Xanax, but I got prescribed a drug similar to that. And instead of smoking weed, I started taking an extra pill here and there. That extra pill came into a daily habit, and next thing I know, I was running out of the prescription I had for a whole month. It was gone in 2 weeks. So within, what are you guys, like, you guys are probably 12, 13 maybe, right? So around that time, I had just really started smoking and my addiction had begun. I didn't see that I had an addiction starting, even though everybody else around me in my class and my age, they weren't doing the same things I was doing to the extent I was doing it. I had friends, a lot of the kids were varsity, really good at sports. I hung out with a lot of all different kinds of people, groups, whatever you want to call it. I hung out with skaters. There was skating used to be really big. Skinny jeans were really big at the time. So you had all different kinds of cliques. And I gravitated towards whatever clique as long as they were smoking after school. 13, 7th grade, that's when a lot of hormones and, puberty and all that starts kicking off. And, I would say I had some insecurities. I think a lot of people do, especially when you start discovering who you are and what you want to be in life. And I found that using drugs was a terrible way to cope and mask how I was feeling. And it became a go-to for me. A lot of people that you're going to see in that room over there started off at a young age, not all of them, but we all start somewhere. That person sleeping underneath the bridge, or that guy standing outside of the 7-Eleven or the Dunkin' Donuts with a cup asking for spare change. You didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be homeless. I want to go stand outside of a store and ask for money and hold up a sign and say, give me money for food. It was a process. It started somewhere. And for me, my addiction started at around your age, like I said. Despite all the consequences and my teachers and guidance counselors and people tried getting me help, they offered suggestions. I didn't really accept it. I didn't want it. I sure as heck at 7th grade did not want to tell any of the teachers or any of my guidance counselors anything I or anybody else in my friend group were doing. And I can say now, even walking through today, I saw another kid that I went to school with, his pictures over there, and I knew he died. He died in 2018. But he was one of those guys at a young age, we were just started off with simple, stuff like weed. And it progressed. I went from, at 16, I had a pill habit. I started picking up other addictions. I started getting more pill habits. It was more than just those medications that I had mentioned earlier. I was now abusing different kinds of muscle relaxers and stuff like that. I don't know how much you guys really know, but I got into some pretty bad stuff. And I can easily say now that my view has changed. If I had not started smoking and doing stuff at an early age and downplaying it in my mind and making it seem like it was no big deal, then me taking a couple extra pills 3 years later would have maybe not been something I would have thought was a smart move. I definitely downplayed a lot of stuff. And this is an age, guys, where you're going to start coming into who you want to be and the choices you make today. I'm sure you guys hear this a lot, especially in school, that the choices you make today are going to carry with you. I'm not much older than you, maybe like 10 years. I'm telling you this proof that that's the truth. So, I have a few minutes left. I want to say there's this law in New Jersey, it's called the Good Samaritan Law. And what that means is if you're out hanging out with friends, I know around your age, we had little places like in my town, we had a place called Red Dirt. We called it Red Dirt because the dirt was red, like, you know, like a reddish kind of color. But it was somewhere where all the high schoolers and all the kids who were leaving middle school, because, you know, at that time you were allowed to walk home from school, you didn't have to go on a bus. Well, instead of going home, we would go to Red Dirt. It was this place off the train tracks, and it was a little secluded, and people used to drink, they used to smoke, they used to fight, they used to make out, do all this kinds of stuff. And there are a lot of places like that in every town you go to, where kids go, or I don't want to call you kids, but young teenagers, adults, whatever, will go to, and it'll be their little escape from teachers and parents and everything like that. And I've seen some pretty bad stuff happen at these little hangout spots, and if you ever find, whether you're older or whatever, if you're at a party or if you're at one of these hangout spots, no matter where you are, even if you're in the middle of the woods, I don't know, and you see somebody who maybe is drinking too much or took something, too much of something, even if it was one thing and they're not looking good, maybe they're sweating a lot, maybe they have blue, purple lips, throwing up. If they're passed out, definitely, you know, call 911. The Good Samaritan Law is a law that was put in place that if you call for help and somebody might have taken something or is not looking too good, you can call 911, paramedics, police will come, they will save that person's life even if you are under the influence. Even if there are illicit drugs or alcohol around you, you don't have to worry about getting in trouble. They will take that stuff away and you'll be able to help save somebody's life. The reason that that law was implemented is because a lot of kids were scared, and not just kids, adults were scared to call for help. They were scared that they were going to obviously get in trouble or lose their scholarship or whatever. But you can save somebody's life. That's something important to remember, because I know, like with alcohol especially, you know, a lot of people get alcohol poisoning. I don't know if I'm 100% here, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's, you feel the first effects of alcohol within the first 20% of alcohol, I think, within the first couple minutes. The other 80% of the effects of alcohol, of however much you took, comes over like a 2-hour or maybe hour-and-a-half period of time. So a lot of people who end up getting alcohol poisoning is because they're drinking, and the rest of the alcohol didn't catch up to them yet. And that's how a lot of people end up drinking, to the point where they get toxicity, they need to get a tube shoved down their throat into their stomach to get it pumped out, so this way they don't die and overdose on alcohol. And I've known a lot of people who that's happened to. That is not something fun, and that's one of the easiest ways a lot of young people especially, and as you get older, a lot of, I know for guys, we do a lot of hazing, you know, which is where you try and outdrink other people, or you coerce people into doing certain things for whatever stupid reason. Please keep that in mind. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this word called fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic form of opiates, heroin. A lot of people are putting fentanyl in marijuana. Sometimes you'll have a drug dealer, they'll have a scale in front of them, and they might be weighing out whatever substance, heroin or cocaine, and they'll have fentanyl, and they'll mix it because it makes it stronger, and you know, they get more people addicted to it. But even if they cleared all this stuff off the scales, and now they're weighing the marijuana that they're going to put on the street that might go into your pocket because you go and buy it from some guy who bought it from some guy who bought it from some guy. Now even that little bit of fentanyl or whatever is now on your marijuana. If you were to smoke that, you can die. And that's something that's becoming a really big thing. So even though weed is becoming legal in New Jersey, that's just something to think about, you know. Is that a chance you want to take? Do you want to end up becoming like the people, and God rest their souls, in the room over there? I know if I had only thought about some of the choices I made at a young age, it would have stopped me from making even stupider choices later on. I'm not a stupid person, but I did a lot of dumb things in my life, and I regret a lot of it. I hurt a lot of people. I almost got locked up. At 16, I was on the year in standing probation. I got kicked out of 2 alternative schools. I had been arrested countless times, and a lot of it was with the help of drugs. You know, I grew up with an amazing mother, you know, single mother. She would carry the world for me if she could, and I love that woman to death. I grew up with great morals and values. A lot of those morals and values went out the window when I started using drugs. I lost a lot of who I was. I hated myself. I did not take care of myself. Today, actually January 7th, I celebrated 4 years clean and sober from all drugs and alcohol. It was not an easy thing. It wasn't easy, but today, you know, I'm able to go, oh, I'm sorry, actually I celebrated 5 years. Wow, that was a big blur. I had my 21st birthday, I turned 21, and the way I celebrated that was I went home, I watched Netflix, and I ate ice cream cake. And that was one of the best birthdays of my life. And I have fun today, man. I go out, I live a normal life, I have a job, I'm able to keep a job. I didn't get out of drug addiction completely unscathed at a young age. I had a lot of ulcers, a lot of injury to my esophagus. I had to go on a bunch of medications. I had some cancer. Thank God it got removed. But I made a lot of stupid choices, and today I'm still dealing with those side effects, especially vaping. You know, I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes. My mom smokes, so I started stealing cigarettes in 6th grade. Started going and buying Lucy's with my friends after school, you know, at your age. And now I have to take 2 inhalers a day because I thought, oh, if I quit smoking cigarettes, vaping is okay. You know, I was taking 2 Juul pods a day, and I had a lot of infections in my lungs. You know, my breathing is still not the best. I have a little over 2 years now without vaping or any kind of nicotine either, you know, and it's not easy. But that's a drug too, you know, especially with all their fruity Fruit Loop flavors and gumdrop this and blueberry that, you know, it's all garbage. You know, if you look at those commercials where it shows, you know, the people talking about the little vapes, and I don't remember, I think it's called truth.com or something like that. You know, a lot of places, they promote things that they know people are gonna like. And once you take it, you're gonna get addicted to it. Nicotine is a drug, alcohol is a drug, marijuana, I definitely look at as a drug today. Anything that has potential for abuse is a drug. And if it has potential for abuse, then it's probably something that's really not good for you, and it's gonna come at a very high cost. And again, like the people in that room over there, the cost for them was their lives. And that could have been me. Dare I say it, that should have been me. But obviously, you don't have to go down that path. I'm going to pass this over now to Morgan. She's an amazing person.
I'm Morgan. I'm here with Alumni in Recovery. I'm the operations manager for Alumni in Recovery, and we really pushed to have this specific presentation to be done, and Park Ridge has been nothing but welcoming with open arms. We thought it was very important that not just the general public saw this visual representation of the overdose deaths, but also the students, because unfortunately when you walk around, there's a lot of young ages. There's a lot of young ages. I know there's one as young as 16, and behind me is my friend Elena, who passed away a little bit after she had just turned 19. So, you know, we really want the kids to know that they might think it can never be them, but all of these people probably thought the same at some point. So in combination with sharing my story and our other A&R speakers sharing their stories, we hope to just bring awareness, bring education, and open up the conversation around addiction.
Meet Tyler Cordero. This is a letter Tyler wrote to himself shortly before he passed. Dear Tyler, I know you're afraid, and I know you feel like your life is not worth it, but it is worth it. You can't see the life that you are going to have, but you have to keep going. You can't give up. Your life is meaningful, and people love you. There are tough times right now, but just wait until you get past this. You're going to have a family and kids, and be trustworthy. This is not going to be a letter that your mom reads when you die. Fear doesn't have to rule you. Find your confidence. You have to get through the uncomfortable parts so you can appreciate the comfortable. You don't have to hurt the people that love you anymore. You can make your mom proud. You can be as successful as you want. Use this experience to show your strength. Don't be afraid. Just keep pushing and know that you will succeed as long as you stay away from dope. Think big and dream bigger. You can do whatever you want. Just be strong. People love you. Tyler.
This time it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Mayor Michelle.
I'll keep my comments brief. I just felt it was important for me to come here as a representative of the residents of Park Ridge to express the importance of what you're all doing here. We all know the scourge of the United States is the opioid problem. I see it. I've had personal experience with it, and most people don't think beautiful communities like the one we live in have that issue. And the truth of the matter is, it's probably a bigger problem in some of the more affluent, nice communities. And I think Sergeant Zott, when he gets up here, he'll talk about what we deal with here. But the important part of this whole project is getting that message out to the youth and having them understand it before it's too late. Because let's face it, we all have been in those situations where you can make a right or a left and you make the wrong turn, and then it impacts your life forever. So I just want to thank, I'm not going to be redundant and thank everybody that Troy already did, but I want to thank you all. I want to thank those residents that are here, and I hope you get as much out of it as I have already. So God bless you all. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Sergeant John Zott, Park Ridge Police Department. And for what we do with the kids in the classroom is we started the Not Even Once program. And what that is, it's a program that was made up by a police chief down Manchester, New Jersey. And we sit and meet with the kids for 5 days. And during those 5 days, we go over what is a drug, what is heroin, how do we get here, how did the epidemic start, and how do we progress to where we are now. The thing I love about it is that all 4 officers who are involved each have a personal story. We each relate to what's going on. Whether it's a family member that's who is dealing with addiction, or a friend, or just another person they know in the community. So we all volunteered for this program to get the point across to the kids and try to teach them, hey, listen, this is real, all right? You guys go walk through the room next door and see what this drug, this epidemic is doing to the country as a whole. It's not just here in New Jersey, it's just not here in the inner city, it's everywhere. All right, so when we speak with the kids, we're more like, mentors and teachers. We treat them like adults. They're 16, 17, 18 years old. We want them to make their own decision. But you know what? We want them to make the decision knowing what the consequences could be. So once they're armed with that knowledge and they have that toolbox, for lack of a better term, then they could go out into the real world. They could go out to college, workforce, military, whatever it'll be. And at least keep maybe something we taught them in the back of their minds before they try something. Second day of the program, we'll have people in recovery come in and talk to them. My favorite part about it is Nancy's that they're from this area. So when kids sit there and say, oh, I'm from Park Ridge, it doesn't happen here, they'll learn that somebody from a neighboring town sat in these chairs just like they did. All right? The following day, we have parents that come in, and they explain, because obviously it's not just the person who is using the drug who's having the problem, it's the whole family. It changes the whole family dynamic. Everybody's affected. So when we have the parents come in, it shows the children, oh wait, it's not just about me. Everybody in the house is being affected. And then the last and final day is we talk about signs of an overdose. And we also go over the Overdose Prevention Act. So the Overdose Prevention Act is, back in 2013, Governor Christie signed into law that if you see a person who needs medical help due to an overdose, either from drugs or alcohol, The person who is in medical distress will not be prosecuted, will not get arrested, will not get in trouble. Also, the person who calls 911 will not get in trouble. Because what was happening was people were taking drugs that were overdosing, and people were just tossing them out of cars because they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble, so they would just leave them on the side of the road. It's happened in this town. So that's why Governor Christie back in 2013 said there's something wrong here. If we could change the way we're doing things and we could save a life, this is worth it. So that's why they came out with that law. So please, you have kids, we instill to them, if they're out at a party, they see something wrong, call. You could save their life. But we go over signs and symptoms of an overdose. We go what to do, maybe put them in recovery position. Because you know, at that point, all they're trying to do is save that person's life or gain a little extra time. A few years ago, we were given some called naloxone or Narcan. What that is, it's a drug that's an antagonist of opiates, so it helps block the receptors that the opiates go after when you use a drug, whether it be heroin, certain painkillers, and so forth. All right? We're using the Narcan a lot, just to be blunt with you. It could be your neighbors, it could be a friend of yours that you don't know is dealing with addiction, but we're, I'd say maybe 1 a week, every other week, and so forth. Sometimes we give someone Narcan one day, and then they go to the hospital, and 12 hours later, we're giving them another dose of Narcan. It's that serious. And the thing that they're upset about the most is when they see us, is they're not worried about getting in trouble, because they won't be, but it's because we ruined their high. So it's real, it's here in town. If you see anybody or know anybody, you know, who might need help, we're here. All right, we're stressing community relations. We're not looking to get people in trouble. We're not looking to, you know, get people arrested or anything like that. We're here to help. I have tons of contacts with people who provide services, whether it be mental health services, recovery services for addiction, and so forth. We're all one big team, one big unit. We work well with the schools. We're here all the time, and we have other great support to help us out. I'll be here for a little bit. Maybe you have questions or anything, please. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, and I'm happy and thankful that you guys are here, so thank you.
I'm Dee Gillen. This is my daughter, Deborah. We are from Haworth, right down the street, so I'm reiterating everything you're saying. I grew up there. We moved back, raised our family there. So this is our story. And tell me if you can see. See all right? We never anticipated traveling down this road. I don't think any of us do. We want the best for our children. We want to watch them grow and thrive. We raised our 3 children in the beautiful town of Haworth, just a few miles from here. They attended Haworth Public School and Northern Valley in Demarest. Scott and Deborah graduated in 2006 and 2007. They both went on to attend college. Deborah went to University of South Carolina, and Scott went to Moravian in Pennsylvania. Can you all hear me okay? Our youngest son, Eric, went to Bergen Catholic in Oradell, and he then graduated from Quinnipiac just recently. Scott played football all 4 of his years in Demarest. He played basketball all 4 of his years, and he also was captain in his senior year. He played for Coach Rudolph, probably here in this gym at one point, and his coach nicknamed him Fearless. It was perfectly appropriate for him. Scott was extremely smart. He wasn't studious, but he was very smart. He took the SATs with no number 2 pencils, no calculator, came in as they were closing the door, didn't take any classes to study in advance, and he got 2 wrong in the math section. He went on to play lacrosse at Moravian as a freshman on the varsity team. All 3 of our children enjoyed full and active schedules, including music, sports, and lots of friends. All 3 of our children were part of a very loving family. We strive to give each one the very best we could. But over the years, something got in the way: drugs, alcohol, and for us, heroin. I'm not here with the solution. If I knew the solution, my son would still be here with us. I'm not here to blame anyone or anything. I've accepted what's happened, and I have 2 other children that need our love and care and support. I'm not here to be judged. If you think I'm a clueless parent, you couldn't be more wrong. And I'm not here for your pity. Telling my boy's story keeps him alive. So why am I here? Sometimes I have to think about it and go back to the beginning. Back to the time where our story just started. It's hard because how many stories can people listen to? But then I think about it and I go back to when Scott was a little baby. Back to the days when we thought we were the kind of parents that this would never, ever affect our family. Back to the days when we just thought this could never happen to us. Couldn't. Back to the days when we were involved in their lives 100%. We had dinner with them every night. We sat down and did homework. Their friends were at our house all the time. If they weren't at our house, I was calling the house that they were at. Back to the days when we confidently thought, as parents, we got this. Then one day, it was too late. We thought we were on top of this, but managed to barge its way into our family, into our life, and took our boy away. So why am I here? Arms wide open to tell you that we live like this now for every second of every minute for the rest of our lives. Don't ever say it can't happen to you. These are the last memories that I have of my firstborn child. His name was Scott Francis Gillen. On Thursday, October 15th in 2015, he sent his last text message out while he was getting ready to go out on a date. At 10:41 p.m., his best friend and roommate found him on the floor of this bathroom. He was unresponsive with a needle in his arm. Scott's story didn't start with a prescription. His story was just experimenting. Him and his friends, they were experimenting. They were just doing what others were doing, but for him, his ending was a lot different. He had no intention of being mercy to a needle. He was smart, good-looking, charming, talented. He had a great job. He lived in a nice apartment. He was in Florida when he passed. He drove his cherished Jeep, and he had a family that loved him. He enjoyed life, and life enjoyed him. By the way, this picture here, this one that I'm holding, he was wearing those goggles in this picture. That's why they're here. They're a little sentimental to me. So a few short days after he passed and we had his funeral, we had to make the trip to Florida and close out his life down there. And we were petrified. We didn't know what we were going to find. We were going to be walking into his life exactly how he left it. We were surprised to find everything was in order. His clothes were hung neatly, his laundry was done, his bed was made. There was nothing out of order. So we looked around, to see everything was in order. His bed, his keys, his remote control was thrown on top of his bed. It's such a stark feeling because you walk into it thinking you're going to find bottles and needles and drugs all over the place, but no, everything was clean, everything was in perfect order. And we've been through this before. This is a beast. It is so beastly. It fools you. You think that you are on top of it, and then all of a sudden, he's gone, we are in his room, and everything's fine. You would never know that a relapse was in progress. Addiction did its job well with Scott. This picture was taken just weeks before he passed away. This is not a person that you would look at and think he is a drug addict and about to die. Scott made a choice years ago. He had no idea that choice would eventually cost him his life. For us, we will always be a family of 5. But for Scott, he's now forever 27. I wanted to leave you with a couple of things. My takeaway messages to you would be, first, to never say never. As I watch people walk through the displays that we do over and over again, you see the faces. We watch you. And, your hopes are so high that this will never happen to my kids. I want to know what's going on, but this will never happen to my family. I remember that too. I remember feeling that way too, and never would I have thought I'd be burying my son at the age of 27. So never say never. It happens. The second thing I want to say is don't quit. Whether you are in this battle, you know somebody in this battle, somebody in your family is battling this, or you're just somebody that is here to find out what this is all about, don't quit. Don't quit educating yourself. Don't quit looking out for your family and friends. Don't quit. If you know someone, don't quit on them. They need you. This is hard. This is hard for them to get well and get better, and they need help. So don't quit. And the last thing I want to leave you with is a poem. I'm not going to read it because I've taken up too much time now, but I came across a poem that describes addiction, what I went through, perfectly. And it's called Take Me in Your Arms, Miss Heroin. It was so powerful. I found it before Scott died. I carried it around for years, and then when he died, I read it at my son's funeral. I have copies of it here. Please feel free to take. You can read it. And I have bracelets here that say my life matters, because everybody's life matters that's going through this. That's what I wanted to share with you. So please take the poem and read it at another time if you'd like. It's very powerful. So thank you all for listening. I really appreciate you hearing this story.
thinking about talking to Craig. Usually I'm speaking with the kids, and speaking with the parents definitely feels different for me. But I almost feel I almost feel like a little more comfortable because I'm a parent. And when it comes to my daughter, you know, there's really nothing that really makes me feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I've always been doing what's right for her, and that's what I've been doing, you know, since I've been in recovery. And you know, I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about like, my process, right? Like, when I first got clean, basically when I hit rock bottom for probably like the third or fourth time, serious rock bottom. And someone told me that addiction is a disease, and I really didn't understand that. You know, I always felt like if I was addicted to opiates, so if I stopped taking opiates, I would get very sick. So it forced me to use against my will, even when I wanted to stop using, because it was ruining my life. You know, there are nights where, you know, before I went to bed, I would do one more, and I would lay in bed next to my significant other, and I would be convinced that I had done one too many and that I was going to die. And I would get so panicky because, you know, at that point, I was taking, you know, 4 or 5 pills every 4 hours. And, you know, I'm talking about, you know, very strong painkillers. And I'd be so panicky that I was going to die that there's several nights where I almost, you know, just tapped on her shoulder and said, you know, I need help. But eventually I would fall asleep and I would wake up and I would forget all about that and start all over again. So you know, I really believe that if I could just get help, stop taking the drugs and get through the sickness, that I would never do this to myself again. And that's what I learned about the disease of addiction, and that it was more than the drugs. It was me. It was a problem with me that I was dealing with that I didn't understand until I started, you know, working on myself in recovery. And somebody explained it to me, and it sounds a little silly, but it's the only thing that made sense to me, right? A close friend of mine who has a lot of years clean in recovery, he explained the disease of addiction like this: like, when I was hanging out with my friends growing up, by the way, I grew up in a town just like this, same thing. When I was hanging with my friends growing up, and we were all, you know, doing the normal thing, you know, partying on the weekends and experimenting and really having fun. I mean, I can't look back at those times and say it wasn't fun. We were having fun, and I never thought there was a problem. I mean, if my parents found out what I was doing, obviously there was a problem, but, you know, we had it under control. And so he explained to me like this: when I'm hanging out with my friend, he said, imagine you and your friends are a bunch of cucumbers. He said, but you have the disease of addiction. You don't know this yet at that age, but you have the disease of addiction. So picture yourself, you're a pickle amongst the cucumbers. You look just like them, but you're different. And they said, you know, I had to learn how to live my life as a pickle amongst a bunch of cucumbers. Okay? So that's how he explained it to me, and it made a lot of sense to me. And unfortunately, I didn't know I was a pickle until, you know, I had almost achieved suicide, basically by slowly trying to kill myself every day. Obviously, had I known that, I don't know if I would have done anything different, you know, because the consequences or the experiences in life is what actually caused me to change. Of course, you know, my mother and father, they were always amazing, and you know, they're from a time when there was a lot of experimenting with drugs and rock and roll, so they were like the cool parents. So I was always talked to them and thought that it was, you know, they were just always cool with things like that. So I think I would have approached things differently, but I still would have probably ended up in the same place, right? So. When it all changed for me, something happened in my life that was really affected me psychologically. It was just an event that happened in my life that affected me psychologically. And it made me not want to talk about that, and it made me feel certain ways that I kept bottled up and I didn't express it yet. And it changed my relationships with people and things like that, but I kept it inside. And what I found out was, after this event happened, I found out that when I altered my mind, I felt better. I felt more comfortable. I was able to talk to people, and I was able to talk to girls and hang out with the guys. And so I realized that, if I just altered my mind a little bit, I just felt like I was a part of, and I just felt more comfortable. So if you would have met me or saw me on the street, you wouldn't have thought I was high. I didn't look high, and I kept that up for a while. But it wasn't. I wasn't doing anything where if I stopped, I would get sick. And then I got into a car accident. I got hit by a drunk driver, and I broke my back. And at the time, I worked for the state of New Jersey, right? So I'm seeing all these great doctors and things like that, and they started giving me painkillers. And having had this thing already, the painkillers were it was wow, this is what I've been missing. And I was taking them as prescribed because I was in pain, and at the same time, I wasn't working. I was home in my apartment, and next thing you know, I'm like the mayor of the apartment complex. I'm outside, I'm talking to everybody, having a great time, and one doesn't work anymore, so I'm taking two. And the disease of addiction is progressive. It just continues to get worse. And they say one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that's true. It just never ends. And eventually, I went to a pain management center. And that doctor, I don't know why. I don't know why I wasn't paying him or anything like that. But over just a very short period of time, I convinced him to give me a prescription for 90 narcotics. Actually, 3 different prescriptions for 90 narcotics. He was able to write them just a little bit different, so I was able to get all 3 of them under my insurance. And it got to the point where he was giving me that every 9 to 12 days. So I was taking 270 pills within 10 to 12 days. And I walked through this, and it's just shocking to me. I can't believe that I'm still here, and all these beautiful people are on black posters in there. And there's no, the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate, and it can happen to anyone. So I just want to say real quick, because being here with parents and stuff like that, I feel like I need to say that my running partner was my significant other. We got together. We were together for 8 years, and we started using together, and we started seeing the same doctor. And when she got pregnant, she started taking pills kind of behind my back. Although I'm not going to blame her. I knew she was taking pills, but I didn't know as much as she was taking until about 8 months. At about 8 months pregnant, I found out that she was taking just as many, if not more than I was. So I went right to the high-risk doctor, and I was high, but I was terrified. And I said, this is what's going on. What do I do? And he gave me the worst-case scenario. And also, it might go this way, but it could go that way. When my daughter was born, she was fine. She was fine. She didn't withdraw. Nothing happened. I don't know how to explain that. But she was fine, and the doctor pulled me aside and he said, that perfect little girl, as she was created with a pleasure pathway already there, with this narcotic going through her body. So, sorry, I said thyroid for myself here. He said, when she gets older, she goes to the dentist to get a root canal. If she puts a narcotic in her body, her brain might tell her whoa, this is what I've been missing. And you know what? I remember that feeling. This is what I've been missing. So I have to use my experience to try and watch out for my daughter. And it's really scary. But, you know, by being involved in things like this and being an example myself of recovery, I think that I'll be able to do that for my building. But you know, I think my story is just mine. There's so many, and you know, I just want to. I think it's amazing that you're all here, taking the time out to come here. You know, it's the Black Poster Project is so powerful, and you know, I came here like riddled with social anxiety, walking in that room, and it was just shook, and hearing Dee's story just shook. So you know, I want to thank you all for listening to me, and have a good night. Thanks.
Okay, but I just want to say thank you, and at this time, you know, Dee Gillen is the creator of the Black Poster Project, and please go walk through and see the posters, take it in if you have any questions, you want to talk about anything. We're always here. We have lots of different handouts on our tables, and you can always get in touch with us if you want to get involved. We have so many ways of getting involved. It's important we get involved because this is a disease process that renders us powerless. And you know, I'm in recovery for 33 years, and you know, when I got to that point, I said, I can't use successfully. You know, that degree of powerlessness, but we're all in some way affected by this right now. So it is a way that we can get into action. You know, we're not, you know, you can be part of this solution because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to get out of this. And I really want to thank Park Ridge High School for allowing us to be, they're the prototype, by the way, of allowing students to actually go through and look at the Black Poster Project today and then invite your parents in tonight because it's really important that they're able to have a conversation with you about it. And a conversation with anybody about it. But that's what we do. We speak openly about the disease of addiction because if we put light on this, the darkness will start dissipating. And this is one disease that we can actually prevent. So let's do it. Let's do it together. So thank you. Thank you, Andy.